In this episode, we move into a part of Domain 4 that can seem ordinary at first until you realize how many serious outages, security failures, and business disruptions begin with something that changed or with something the organization did not fully understand it owned. That is why information technology, IT, operations, change management, and asset management matter so much for someone studying certified in risk and information systems control, see risk. A beginner can think of this topic as the discipline of keeping the technology environment both visible and controlled while the business keeps moving. Systems must be updated, repaired, expanded, and sometimes retired, but those actions cannot happen in a careless way. At the same time, the organization needs to know what hardware, software, data, services, and dependencies it has, who owns them, what they support, and how important they are. When those two operating habits are strong, the business becomes more stable and more secure. When they are weak, changes introduce avoidable harm, important assets disappear into uncertainty, and leaders lose the clear picture they need to govern risks sensibly. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. IT operations is the daily work of keeping technology services running in a way that supports the business. That includes maintaining availability, supporting users, handling incidents, managing routine tasks, and making sure systems remain reliable enough to support real business activity. Change management and asset management fit inside that operating picture because they answer two very practical questions. First, how does the organization modify its environment without breaking important services or creating unnecessary exposure? Second, how does it keep track of the resources it depends on so those resources can be supported, secured, monitored, and retired responsibly over time? A company can have strong goals and still struggle badly if it cannot answer those questions clearly. New learners sometimes think operations is just a technical backroom function, but it is much more than that. It is one of the main places where business promises become reality. If systems fail, change goes poorly, or critical assets are unknown, customers, employees, partners, and regulators all experience the consequences whether they know the technical cause or not. Change management is the structured process used to introduce modifications to systems, applications, infrastructure, configurations, or procedures in a controlled way. The word controlled is the key idea because change management does not exist to stop improvement. It exists to make improvement safer, more predictable, and more visible. Every organization needs change. Software must be updated, security weaknesses must be addressed, old equipment must be replaced, business requirements must be met, and new capabilities must be added. The risk comes from the fact that even helpful changes can create outages, break integrations, weaken access controls, confuse users, or produce hidden side effects that do not appear until the business is already relying on the new condition. For a beginner, it helps to think of change as both necessary and dangerous. That combination is exactly why mature organizations do not rely on memory, heroics, or informal hallway approval when systems are being altered. They use a repeatable process so that changes are evaluated, approved, communicated, implemented, and reviewed with enough discipline to reduce surprise and protect important operations. One of the most useful beginner lessons is that not every change deserves the same level of treatment. Some changes are routine, low risk, and repeated often enough that the organization understands them well. Other changes are larger, less familiar, or tied to critical systems, which means they deserve deeper review and more careful coordination. A smaller group of changes are true emergencies, where the organization may need to act quickly to restore service or contain harm. This does not mean rules disappeared during urgency, but it does mean the response may be accelerated with stronger follow-up afterward. Mature change management is therefore risk-based rather than one-size-fits-all. If an organization treats every small adjustment like a major transformation, teams may become frustrated and start bypassing the process. If it treats major changes casually, it increases the chance of disruption, security weakness, and confused accountability. Good operations strike a balance by matching the depth of review, testing, approval, and timing to the business impact and technical risk of the change being considered. A strong change process usually begins with clear documentation of what is being changed, why the change is needed, what systems or services may be affected, and who owns both the request and the implementation. From there, the organization evaluates possible impact, checks dependencies, considers security and operational implications, and decides whether testing, peer review, business approval, or formal scheduling are needed before the work proceeds. Some organizations use a Change Advisory Board, CAB, for significant changes that require broader review and coordination across teams. The purpose of a CAB is not to create ceremony for its own sake. The purpose is to make sure important changes receive informed attention from the people who understand the business consequences, technical dependencies, and operational timing involved. After approval, the change is usually scheduled, communicated, implemented, and then reviewed to confirm it worked as intended and did not create unexpected problems. For a beginner, this full life cycle matters because it shows that good change management is not just an approval checkpoint. It is a discipline that follows the change from idea through execution and into learning afterward. Testing is a major part of good change management because organizations should never assume that a planned improvement will behave exactly as expected in production. A change may work correctly in one part of the environment while affecting another part in an unexpected way, especially when systems are interconnected or when older dependencies are not well documented. That is why mature change practice usually asks whether the change has been tested enough for the level of risk involved, whether backout or recovery options are clear, and whether the implementation window is appropriate for the importance of the service. A beginner should understand that testing is not only about technical correctness. It is also about business confidence. If a payment platform, healthcare scheduling system, or customer support portal is being modified, leaders need confidence that the change will not quietly undermine the service people depend on every day. Good testing, planning, and communication reduce that uncertainty. They help the organization avoid the common mistake of treating change as complete once the new setting or code is deployed, when in reality the hardest part may be confirming the business remains stable after the deployment ends. Communication and coordination are just as important as technical skill during change execution. A well-designed change can still cause confusion if support teams are not informed, business owners do not understand the expected impact, or dependent teams learn about the change only after it affects their work. Strong change management, therefore, includes clear notice, timing awareness, and role clarity so everyone involved knows what is happening, when it is happening, and what to do if something goes wrong. Another major principle is accountability. Someone must own the change, someone must approve it at the appropriate level, and someone must confirm the result afterward. Without visible ownership, even a successful change can create later confusion when questions arise about evidence, timing, or business impact. For beginners, this is an important reminder that change management is not simply a technical gate. It is an operating practice that connects technology work to business awareness. The organization is not only managing the change itself, it is also managing how the change is understood, supported, and absorbed by the environment around it. Emergency change deserves special attention because it tests whether the organization can move quickly without abandoning discipline entirely. In an outage, security event, or severe operational failure, there may be real pressure to act immediately. That pressure is understandable, but it also creates conditions where mistakes, weak documentation, unclear approvals, and incomplete testing are more likely. Mature organizations prepare for this by defining how emergency change will be handled before the crisis arrives. They know who can authorize urgent work, what minimum information must still be captured, how communication should happen during the event, and how the change will be reviewed after stability returns. For a beginner, the key lesson is that emergency change is not an excuse for chaos. It is a faster version of controlled change, supported by stronger follow-up once the immediate danger has passed. Post-implementation review is especially important here because the organization needs to confirm whether the emergency action solved the intended problem, whether it introduced new risk, and whether anything about the event suggests the broader operating model should be improved before the next urgent situation appears. Asset management is the other half of this topic, and it is broader than many beginners first expect. An asset is not just a laptop or a server sitting in a room. In a risk and operations context, assets can include hardware, software, cloud services, data stores, mobile devices, network components, virtual machines, licenses, applications, and even certain third-party services the organization depends on heavily. Asset management is the discipline of identifying those assets, recording useful details about them, assigning ownership, understanding what they support, and tracking them through their life cycle. The simple reason this matters is that the organization cannot protect, maintain, patch, monitor, or retire what it does not know it has. Unknown assets create blind spots, and blind spots create risk. For a beginner, asset management should be viewed as organizational visibility. It gives the company a working picture of what resources exist, where they matter, and how they connect to business services. Without that picture, security teams guess, operations teams miss dependencies, and leadership decisions rest on incomplete understanding of the environment. Good asset management starts with inventory, but it should never end there. A list of devices and applications is useful, yet the more important question is whether the organization knows enough about those assets to govern them properly. That usually includes owner, location, business purpose, criticality, support status, data sensitivity, software version, dependency relationships, and sometimes lifecycle stage. A database supporting payroll does not deserve the same casual treatment as a forgotten lab system with no sensitive content. In the same way, an externally exposed service that handles customer information carries different operational and security weight than an internal utility used by a small support team. For beginners, this is where asset management becomes more than bookkeeping. It becomes a risk tool. The organization uses asset information to decide where stronger controls are needed, where changes require deeper review, where recovery planning matters most, and where unmanaged or outdated technology may be quietly increasing exposure. Inventory gives names to things, but asset management gives those things business meaning. Ownership is one of the most important ideas in asset management because assets without clear owners often fall into neglect. If nobody is responsible for a system, then updates may be delayed, access reviews may not happen, recovery planning may be weak, and security questions may bounce between teams without resolution. Mature asset management assigns ownership clearly enough that someone can answer practical questions about the asset's purpose, support model, data sensitivity, dependencies, and retirement path. This does not mean one person personally performs every supporting task. It means accountability exists, and that accountability helps the organization avoid the dangerous condition where important systems are widely used but poorly governed. For a beginner, this is a very practical lesson because many failures in operations and security come not from malice or high technical complexity, but from simple confusion over who is supposed to act. Clear ownership helps the organization make better decisions about maintenance, monitoring, funding, control design, and incident response. It turns a collection of technology objects into a governed environment where responsibility can be traced rather than guessed. Asset lifecycle thinking is equally important because assets create different kinds of risk at different stages of their existence. When a new system is acquired or built, the organization needs to know how it fits into architecture, operations, security, and support. While it is in active use, the organization needs patching, access control, monitoring, backup, vendor oversight, and clear change discipline. As the asset ages, the risks may shift toward unsupported software, rising maintenance cost, poor compatibility, fragile integrations, and growing operational dependence on something that is becoming harder to sustain. Eventually, the asset should be retired, replaced, or decommissioned in a controlled way so data is handled properly, access is removed, contracts are addressed, and hidden dependency does not remain behind. For beginners, lifecycle thinking is important because it shows that asset management is not static. It is not just knowing what exists today. It is also understanding where the asset came from, how it is being sustained, and what the organization must do when the asset is no longer fit for future business needs. The connection between asset management and security is direct and powerful. Vulnerability management depends on knowing which systems exist and which versions they run. Access management depends on knowing which assets hold important information or privileged capabilities. Backup and recovery planning depend on knowing which assets support critical services and what data they contain. Monitoring and incident response depend on understanding where evidence lives, which systems are connected, and which assets matter most when time is short. For a beginner, this is one of the clearest examples of why operational discipline supports security discipline. A security team cannot reliably protect an environment that is poorly inventoried, poorly classified, and poorly owned. In the same way, operations cannot safely maintain an environment if criticality is unclear and dependencies are hidden. Asset management provides the map that makes many other control processes possible. When the map is incomplete, those processes become weaker. When the map is strong, the organization can make more intelligent decisions about where to focus attention, how to prioritize change, and how to respond when problems occur. Change management and asset management are deeply connected because every meaningful change should be understood in relation to the assets it affects, and every significant asset record should reflect changes that alter the environment. If the organization does not know a system is critical, it may approve a risky change too casually. If it does not know which applications depend on a shared database or network component, a small adjustment may have far wider consequences than expected. This is why many organizations maintain a configuration management database, CMDB, or a similar source of information about assets and their relationships. The value of a CMDB is not that it sounds sophisticated. Its value is that it helps teams understand what depends on what, which owners need to be involved, and which changes deserve more careful review because the blast radius may be larger than it first appears. For a beginner, the relationship is simple. Good change management needs good asset information, and good asset management must stay current as changes reshape the environment. If either side becomes weak, the other one becomes less trustworthy. A common misunderstanding is that change management slows progress and asset management creates paperwork, but that view misses what these disciplines are trying to prevent. Uncontrolled change often creates rework, outages, confusion, and emergency recovery effort that wastes far more time than disciplined planning ever would. Poor asset management leads to hidden systems, unclear ownership, unsupported software, and weak prioritization that create risk and inefficiency for years. Mature organizations do not use these practices to look formal. They use them because technology environments are too important, too interconnected, and too fast-moving to govern by guesswork. For someone studying this topic, the bigger lesson is that strong operations do not come from speed alone. They come from visibility, accountability, and repeatable habits that make change safer and make asset knowledge more reliable. When change management and asset management work together well, the organization gains a stronger grip on how its environment evolves. That improves resilience, security, and business confidence all at once. As we close, the main idea to carry forward is that IT operations depends heavily on two connected disciplines: controlling change and understanding assets. Change management helps the organization improve systems without creating unnecessary disruption or hidden exposure, while asset management helps the organization know what it depends on, who is responsible, and where operational and security attention should be focused. C-Risk expects you to see these not as background administrative topics, but as core parts of how risk is managed in real environments. When changes are evaluated, communicated, tested, approved, and reviewed carefully, the business can move forward with more confidence. When assets are known, classified, owned, supported, and retired responsibly, other control processes become far more effective. Together, these practices create something every organization needs but often struggles to sustain, which is a technology environment that can change without losing control of itself. That is why change and asset management sit so close to the center of good IT operations.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.